Yessica had enough. Her meticulously labeled glass containers were vanishing like socks in the dryer. Monday's quinoa salad? Gone. Wednesday's stuffed bell peppers? Vanished. Friday's flan? Don't even ask. And every time she raised an eyebrow, Chloe would roll hers harder. I'm not the one hoarding calories in the dead of night, Yessica. I eat regret and acrylic fumes, Chloe snapped, clutching a charcoal pencil like a dagger. She hadn't blinked in 3 hours. Yessica muttered, I'm just wiping surfaces, but if these walls could talk, they'd say, where's the damn flan? Meanwhile, Veronica had just posted a new Instagram story. A selfie in satin, with dramatic candlelight, and a caption that read, Family is sacred, unless you're a liar. The entire household saw it, including Santiago, who silently mouthed, What now? Before Senor Whiskers dropped a single, damp sock at his bare feet. Santiago paled. That's not mine, he whispered. The sock smelled of lavender and something far more sinister, menthol ointment. Upstairs, Brandon ripped open a tub of protein powder and found a diamond earring glinting like betrayal. It was not his fiancée's, mainly because she wore hoops, and this was a teardrop stud, crusted with something suspiciously glittery. He stormed into the hallway shirtless, as usual. I'm not that dumb, he declared. But even I know protein powder shouldn't sparkle. Yessica had already launched her Counter-Strike, a motion-activated fridge cam. She waited until 3:02 a.m., clutching her iPad like a detective with a warrant. The footage? Grainy. The culprit? Illuminated by flashlight, cloaked in a shawl like a culinary ghost. Lucretia. The 70-year-old matriarch tiptoed into the kitchen like she'd been doing it since Nixon resigned. She opened the fridge, muttered, The lettuce has eyes, and shoved 3 Tupperwares into a knitted bag before vanishing into the shadows. The next morning, Yessica confronted her. Anything you want to confess, Senora? Lucretia sipped her tea, eyes like ice picks. Hunger is a punishment for disobedience. Then she added, Also, your labeling system is flawed. Brandon, still shirtless and emotionally confused, wandered into the kitchen with a diamond earring in hand. Whose is this? He asked. Veronica looked up from her herbal compresses and said, with operatic disgust, Don't wave strange jewels at me before breakfast, Brandon. It's uncouth. Santiago stayed quiet. He'd found something earlier in Lucretia's drawer, while looking for socks. A Ziploc bag labeled, If they turn on me? Inside, a tiny vial marked, Only if necessary. A survival whistle, and an old family photo, with one face violently scratched out. Lucretia, what's this? He asked later that day. She smiled sweetly. Insurance. You should start thinking ahead, too. That night, the house changed. Curfew was declared. At 9 p.m. sharp, Lucretia rang a small brass bell and announced, Any creature in the kitchen after this hour will be evaluated. Chloe, of course, interpreted this as an artistic prompt. She stole the poison vial from Lucretia's drawer, renamed it Muse, and began painting feverishly under red light. Her new piece? A canvas entirely black, save for a single, trembling white fork. Brandon, still trying to return the earring to someone, anyone, accidentally knocked over an old shoebox in the attic. Out fluttered a faded photo. Santiago, 17 years old, with longer hair, kissing a girl. The girl looked exactly like Chloe. He stumbled back, whispering, I'm not that dumb, but that's messed up. Senor Whiskers watched from the stairwell, tail flicking, eyes glowing. On his camera, the moment Chloe took her first sip of Muse tea, the moment Brandon touched the photo, the moment Lucretia opened her survival bag and removed a second list titled, Plan C, if Chloe suspects. And far below, Yessica brewed herself chamomile, muttering, "The fridge is innocent. But this family? Rotten to the core." Lucretia's new rule, the 9 p.m. curfew, hit the household like an unexpected slap with a velvet glove. At 8:59, an eerie silence would settle, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock and the occasional muffled sob from Brandon's protein shake corner. The house transformed. Lights dimmed. Doors creaked. And somewhere in the West Wing, Chloe whispered to her paintbrush, "We thrive in confinement, don't we, darling?" By day 3, Yessica had started compiling her own list, discreetly labeled Rebellion Recipes. Each item featured ingredients mysteriously missing from the kitchen. Peanut butter? Gone. Basil? Extinct. Marshmallows? Don't even joke. She eyed the fridge with suspicion, not of its contents, but of who had access. Lucretia had changed the lock. On a fridge. Meanwhile, Chloe's paintings began to take on unsettling themes. Storm clouds with teeth, spoons bleeding gold, and a portrait of Senior Whiskers labeled, "He knows." She painted exclusively at night, high on Muse, the rebranded poison she now wore in a glass vial around her neck. No one dared to ask. Brandon, still reeling from the photo of Santiago and Chloe doppelganger, confronted his fiancée mid-smoothie. "Bro, is there something you want to tell me about? Like 2014? Or like any girl with bangs you might have kissed that looks suspiciously like my sister?" Santiago blinked. Then, in a voice 10 octaves deeper, murmured, "No hables del pasado si no puedes vivir con las consecuencias." His evil version had clocked in. Veronica, lounging in a silk robe in the sunroom, caught wind of the scene and gasped, "Oh, now the boys are dramatic." Veronica de la Cruz patented this chaos, darling. Don't step into my spotlight without a choreographer. She turned and live-streamed herself crying beside a window. Caption: "All I ever gave them was love. And dental plans." Yessica had had enough. Late that night, armed with oven mitts and a Bluetooth speaker playing Gregorian chants, she sneaked into Lucretia's room. Inside the drawer, where the poison once was, now sat a new envelope, sealed with wax, ominously labeled, "Confessions, T.O.B. read if I disappear." She took it, hid it in the rice container, then went to check on Chloe. The artist sat cross-legged, paint-streaked, sipping from her vial, her pupils like saucers. "What are you painting now, chica?" Yessica asked. Chloe didn't look up. The betrayal before it happens. Back in the protein corner, Brandon was doing push-ups aggressively, mumbling, "Not that dumb. Not that dumb. Just because I dated my half-sister doesn't mean I'm dumb." Senior Whiskers watched, licking his paw in slow judgment. Suddenly, a shriek. Veronica, from the balcony, holding a single, glinting object in her trembling fingers. "A matching earring," she cried, "found in my mint bath salts." Which means, she turned slowly, someone has been bathing where they do not belong. In the background, Santiago dropped his phone. Chloe lit her smoke machine. Fog filled the hallway. From the mist emerged Lucretia, holding a candlestick and a tray of saltines. "I told you," she said calmly. "Silence in this family is the loudest thing." Then she added, "And I know who ate the marshmallows." The following morning, tension simmered like leftover soup. Breakfast was a battlefield of glances. Lucretia stirred her nettle tea with unnerving calm. Chloe smeared black paint across toast. Brandon sat silently, flexing out of stress, not nutrition. Santiago avoided eye contact entirely, as if each glance might detonate a secret. Yessica, apron on and lips pressed tight, served eggs with a side of "I know more than I say." No one mentioned the envelope she'd found. Not yet. Veronica entered last, in a bathrobe the color of vengeance, holding the 2 matching earrings between her fingers like daggers. "Let it be known," she announced, "that Veronica de la Cruz bathes alone. Always has. Always will. And if someone thinks they can infiltrate my mint ritual, maybe you drop them." Chloe muttered. Veronica wheeled around. "Veronica does not drop diamonds, darling. She leaves them as statements." Yessica quietly served her herbal tea. "It's mint-free. I checked it for sins." Brandon finally snapped. "Okay, listen. What if, hypothetically, there's a photo of Santiago kissing a girl that looks like Chloe, but it's not Chloe because it's, like, an evil twin? Do we have any evil twins in the family?" Dead silence. Then, Veronica played an evil twin once. The matriarch whispered. She won a daytime Emmy. Briefly. Santiago stood up, calm and cold. It was a school play. Juliet and Juliet. I was method. The girl had bangs and unresolved trauma. Not your sister. Chloe narrowed her eyes. Was her trauma lavender-scented? In the chaos, Senor Whiskers leapt onto the table. From his collar, a tiny projector flickered to life. Footage. Night vision. A hallway. Then, Lucretia, standing before the fridge, whispering something into a crack in the floorboards. Yessica leaned in. Rewind that. What did she say? The footage zoomed. Enhanced. At 2:03 a.m., Lucretia had said, clearly, "If they come for me, start with the quiet one." Everyone turned. Slowly. Toward Santiago. Veronica gasped. I knew he was too smooth. Brandon stood between them, arms wide. You can't just accuse people based on grainy cat footage. But Yessica had already gone to fetch the rice container. She returned with a wax-sealed envelope. Time for a breakfast read. She broke the seal. Inside, a handwritten note, looping cursive. If you're reading this, the house is turning. The pantry is compromised. The artist is unstable. The shirtless one is in love with the enemy. Trust no one but the kettle. Poison is reversible. Regret is not. Signed, LDLC. L.D.L.C. Lucretia de la Cruz. Santiago whispered. But Chloe's eyes gleamed. Or Lorenzo de Luca? Veronica dropped her teacup. No. No. That man hasn't written me since Cannes. Brandon scratched his head. Wait. Lorenzo? Like my real dad? Everyone froze. Lucretia, standing in the doorway, holding a fresh tray of crackers, simply said, It's begun. That night, thunder cracked with theatrical timing. Even Senor Whiskers twitched. The house felt on edge, like a theater seconds before curtains rise. And in the West Wing, Chloe painted without brushes, only her fingers, and what looked suspiciously like beet juice. Or maybe it wasn't beet juice at all. Downstairs, Veronica lit every candle she could find. Veronica de la Cruz will not be cornered in the dark, she declared, even though no one was listening. She then FaceTimed herself dramatically sipping wine. Caption: When the past knocks, tell it you're not in glam. Yessica, in the pantry, unearthed a second envelope behind the rice, smaller, folded in quarters. This one read, Trust the flames. Avoid the twins. The handwriting was different. Harsher. And not Lucretia's. Meanwhile, Brandon had entered his new phase, over-caffeinated paranoia. Okay, so hear me out, he whispered to Santiago. What if Chloe is Lorenzo's kid, and I'm Lucretia's secret clone, and we're all part of some experiment like in that one movie with Matt Damon and the potatoes? Santiago blinked. You mean The Martian? I don't know, man. I just know there's potatoes and secrets. Senor Whiskers suddenly darted across the hallway, knocking over the candlestick near the curtain. A small flame burst upward. Chloe appeared seconds later with a fire extinguisher. "The house wants to burn," she said calmly, spraying everything but the actual fire. "Let it!" Veronica shrieked and climbed atop the piano bench. "If this house burns, it'll be because you ignited it with your unresolved eyeliner trauma." Lucretia didn't even flinch. She sat in her velvet chair, sharpening pencils for no reason. "I installed the fire extinguishers myself. They're filled with cold soup. Just in case." Yessica walked into the living room, envelope in hand. "We have another anonymous letter." Everyone froze. Chloe turned her head slowly. "Anonymous or cowardly?" Yessica read aloud. "Trust the flames. Avoid the twins." Brendan raised a hand. "I don't think we have twins, unless it's metaphorical. Like evil and good sides?" Santiago stiffened. Lucretia sipped her tea. Veronica gasped. "Wait. The girl Santiago kissed. The one that looked like Chloe. What if she was Chloe? But not this Chloe. Another Chloe." Chloe grinned. "You think I'm replaceable?" Yessica said flatly. "You have a tattoo of a man who dated your mother. Replaceable isn't the issue, recognizable is." Then, out of nowhere, Milo, the forgotten philosophical adoptee, emerged from the staircase holding a painting. "I found this under the wine cellar floorboards. It's signed LDL. He turned the canvas around. It was a portrait. A young Veronica, arm in arm with Lorenzo. And between them, a baby. Chloe stared. Brendan squinted. Veronica burst into sobs. "Veronica doesn't remember that day, but her waist was glorious." Santiago said nothing, but took 2 steps back. Yessica pointed. "That baby's holding a fork." Chloe whispered. "I painted that fork. I dreamed that fork." Lucretia stood. "Well, I suppose we're finally boiling." Then she lifted the rug. Beneath it, a metal door. A keypad. A faint hum. She turned, eyes shining. "Anyone hungry for the truth?" No one breathed. The metal door gleamed beneath the antique rug like a secret throat under pearls. Lucretia, still in slippers, typed a code with the calm precision of someone who had waited decades. 6-6-3-1. LDLC. The lock clicked. Warm air spilled out, not musty, not cold. Something between greenhouse and bakery. Or something else entirely. Veronica clutched her silk robe tighter. "Veronica de la Cruz refuses to enter any room that hums. It's either supernatural or filled with bad lighting. Or both," Chloe muttered, already descending. Brandon hesitated. "I'll go first. I've got good traps." He flexed his shoulders. "Also, if there's, like, gas, I'm super flammable." They entered. The room was windowless, lined with shelves, jars, files, a projector. In the center, a velvet-covered table with a single photo album. A faint lavender smell, familiar and wrong, hung in the air. Lucretia flicked a switch. The projector began rolling. Black and white footage. A young Veronica, laughing beside Lorenzo, pushing a stroller. The date, April 2001. Veronica blinked. "I never wore flats in 2001. "Focus," Yessica said sharply. On screen, baby Chloe cried. Lorenzo cradled her. Veronica kissed his cheek. Brandon mumbled. Wait, is this?" Chloe leaned in. "That's me." Veronica gasped. No. No. That can't be you. Because I was already back with Henry. And we had the backyard barbecue where I burned my fringe. Lucretia interrupted. "You were with Lorenzo until June. Then you lied. Then you married Henry. And pretended Chloe was his." Veronica's lip trembled. But Veronica didn't know. I didn't know. Santiago stepped back. So Chloe is Lorenzo's daughter? Yessica nodded. Which means you kissing her back in Juliet and Juliet was. Santiago paled. Brandon turned green. Chloe tilted her head. So I'm the chaos child. Bored of secrets and denial. That tracks. Suddenly, the projector cut to static. And then, a voice. A recording. If this room has been opened, it means the game has changed. Someone's lying again. But this time I'm ready. It was Lorenzo. Alive? Veronica dropped into a chair. He recorded this? When? Lucretia answered. Last Christmas. He visited. Brought me panettone. Told me everything. And left me this vault. Chloe narrowed her eyes. Why did you keep it from us? Lucretia smiled. Because I don't trust anyone born after 1980. Yessica opened the photo album. Inside, passports, a birth certificate for Claudia De Luca, Chloe's real name, and photos of a child in Italy with a woman who wasn't Veronica. Who's the woman? Brendan asked. Lucretia's voice lowered. Her name was Allegra, Lorenzo's wife. His first wife. Veronica shot up. Excuse me? Veronica was never the other woman. Chloe stared at the last photo. Allegra, smiling, holding baby Claudia, a scar on her wrist. A necklace with a tiny fork pendant. The same fork from Chloe's dream. From her paintings. From the portrait under the wine cellar. The same fork, now missing from the kitchen set. Brandon stammered. Wait. So you're saying Chloe's not your daughter, Mom? Chloe smiled. I always said I wasn't born. I was unleashed. Just then, the power cut. The vault door slammed. Darkness. Then a flicker. On the projector screen, a new video. Lorenzo. Looking straight into the camera. He said, if you're watching this, they've found the fork. The screen flickered, casting ghostly light across their stunned faces. Lorenzo's voice, rich and deliberate, filled the room like perfume before a party, expensive, heavy, and impossible to ignore. If you're watching this, he repeated, they've found the fork, which means the past is no longer asleep. Veronica clutched her throat. Veronica de la Cruz refuses to be haunted by cutlery. Chloe said nothing. She just stepped closer to the screen, transfixed. Lorenzo continued. This fork was forged from silver stolen from a de la Cruz vault. Allegra wore it as a warning. Claudia, yes, Chloe, it's yours now. You always felt it, didn't you? Brandon whimpered. Wait. Is the fork cursed? Lucretia answered without missing a beat. Worse. It's a key. The room went quiet. Even Senior Whiskers stopped grooming himself. Yessica leaned forward. A key to what? Lorenzo's eyes twinkled on screen. To what's below. Suddenly, a whirring sound filled the chamber. Beneath the velvet-covered table, a hidden mechanism groaned. The floor beneath them shifted slightly, just enough for panic. Brandon dubbed behind the couch. Nope. Not today. Brandon Montgomery doesn't go underground unless it's a gym sauna. Chloe, wild-eyed, pulled the fork pendant from the hidden panel in the wall. She didn't remember placing it there. No one had. And yet, her fingers closed around it like it was always waiting for her. Lucretia gave her a slow nod. Claudia used it. Chloe twisted the fork's prongs, and a trapdoor hissed open under the table. Cold air rose. The smell? Like cinnamon and secrets. Veronica backed away. Veronica de la Cruz refuses to descend. That is not her lighting. Santiago took a deep breath. I'll go with her. Chloe paused. We kissed once. I was 17. And confused. I was 13. And bored. Let's never talk about it again. Agreed. They stepped down into the unknown. Yessica followed, holding a flashlight. I does secrets too. Lucretia waved them on. Go. But don't touch the jar labeled 4 Tuesdays. That one bites. They descended into a stone corridor. Candles lined the walls, already lit, as if someone expected them. At the far end, a mirror. Ornate. Italian. Cracked. In the reflection, Chloe saw herself. Not as she was, but younger. Pre-goth, clean, soft, holding Allegra's hand. Chloe blinked. The vision vanished. Yessica whispered, "What is this place?" Santiago noticed a plaque on the wall, engraved in Latin. "Familia est fabola, sed quidem fabulae mordent." What's it mean? Chloe asked. He translated. Family is a story, but some stories bite. Behind them, a click. The trapdoor slammed shut. Back upstairs, Veronica paced the vault. Brandon was crying into a curtain. Lucretia calmly adjusted the projector for a new reel. She pressed play. It was not Lorenzo this time. It was Allegra. Alive. She looked straight at the camera and said, "If my daughter finds this, tell her I never left. I only stepped into the shadow to protect her. But if the de la Cruz blood ever claims her back, I will return. And not gently." Underground, the air thickened. Not with dust, with memory. The candle flames danced, though there was no draft. Chloe touched the mirror's edge, fingers grazing the fractured line like reading a scar. She was here. She whispered, "Allegra? I think she loved me." Santiago stayed silent, but his hand hovered near hers, uncertain if comfort was permission. Yessica squinted toward the end of the hall, where something metallic gleamed behind a curtain of spider silk. It was a door, smaller than it should be, and etched with something unmistakable, a fork. The real one. Chloe breathed. She stepped closer, pendant trembling in her grip. Back upstairs, Lucretia poured herself a glass of fennel wine. I told Lorenzo not to marry Allegra. She had the stare of a woman who sleeps with knives under her pillow. Veronica flopped onto the chaise. So what now? My daughter, or not daughter, is trapped in a crypt with a boy she maybe kissed and a housekeeper with boundary issues? Brandon stood in the corner, still shirtless, still clutching the rice container like a holy relic. We have to help her, even if she's not my full sister. Or maybe cousin. Or something. I don't care. We're fork-bound. Lucretia raised a brow. Adorable. Stupid, but adorable. Meanwhile, underground, Chloe pressed the fork into the etching on the door. It clicked. The wall trembled. A chamber opened. Inside, shelves lined with journals, all labeled in the same neat cursive. ADL, Allegra de Luca. Yessica picked up the top one. Open to a page dated June 3rd, 2001. Claudia was taken today. By her? She said it was for protection, that the Montgomery name would shield her. But I felt the lie. I felt the shift. I will wait in silence. But I will never forget. Chloe stepped back. She meant Veronica. Santiago exhaled. She gave you up. For status. For the marriage. Chloe laughed, sharp, bitter. Of course she did. Nothing says motherly love like a rebrand. Suddenly a sound. Whispers. The candles flickered toward the tunnel. Yessica turned. We're not alone. From the far end, a figure appeared. Not a ghost. A woman. Dressed in black, shawl wrapped tightly, eyes gleaming. Allegra. Alive. She stepped into the light and spoke, her voice a low hush. Claudia, my darling, did they tell you I was dead? Chloe's mouth moved, but no sound came out. I waited, Allegra said, because the de la Cruz house poisons what it touches. But you, she stepped forward reaching, you are the antidote, or the next curse. Santiago moved between them. She's not alone. Allegra smiled sadly. Neither am I. Behind her, a second figure stepped forward. Lorenzo. Alive. Older. Eyes tired. Veronica screamed upstairs. My ex is not allowed to rise from the dead without notice. Lucretia sipped her wine. Ah. Plan D. Delightful. Brandon whispered. Wait. So, if they're alive, then who's in the urn labeled regrets? No one answered. Back below, Lorenzo looked at Chloe. It's time you chose. Blood or name. Chaos or calm. Allegra or Veronica. Chloe stared at both, then smiled. Why choose? I'm a Montgomery, a de la Cruz, and a de Luca. Which means, she picked up a candle. I burn everything. She threw it into the journal shelves. Flames exploded. The chamber lit with fire and truth. The fire licked up the journals like they'd been waiting for flame their whole lives. Pages curled, ink bled, and the scent, lavender, smoke, and old secrets filled the chamber. Allegra screamed, reaching for the shelves, but Chloe stood firm, backlit like an icon of beautiful destruction. I'm not your daughter, she said, voice shaking only at the edges. I'm not her daughter either. I'm the result of everyone's lies, and now I'm the editor. Santiago pulled her back as beams began to groan. The roof's going to collapse. No, Yessica said, calmly guiding them toward the tunnel. It's not collapsing. It's opening. Look. Above, in the living room, the fireplace shuddered. Dust fell in lazy spirals. Lucretia stepped away just in time as a square in the floor cracked wide open. A plume of smoke rose, theatrical, scented. Veronica dropped her wine. Is that potpourri smoke? A moment later, Chloe emerged from the floor like a vengeful ballerina. Santiago behind her. Then Yessica. Then Allegra. Lorenzo last. Veronica gasped. No. Absolutely not. You cannot crawl into my house like a rejected plotline and expect me to curtsy. Allegra stepped forward, stood on her shawl, fury in her bones. You stole my child. Veronica scoffed. She stole my womb. You think that was easy? I did a dramatic monologue every night for 3 years just to cope. Chloe stood between them, arms stretched. Enough. From both of you. I've been lied to, kissed by a maybe brother, fed poison disguised as tea, and chased by my own reflection. I'm reclaiming my inheritance. Brandon raised his hand. What is your inheritance exactly? Trauma? Paintings? The fridge cam? She turned to him, her eyes clear now. Control. Then, with one swift motion, she pulled a tiny silver key from around her neck, the real one, and unlocked the drawer in the sideboard. Out came a thick, leather-bound book, the de la Cruz ledger. Lucretia stepped forward, eyes wide for the first time in years. That was supposed to be in the vault. It was, Chloe replied, until I moved it. Yessica smirked. She knew the house better than all of you. Allegra lunged for it. Veronica, too. Chloe slammed it shut. No. You both had your turn. Now we do this my way. Veronica clutched at her pearls. But Veronica de la Cruz doesn't share plots. Lorenzo cleared his throat. Let her speak. The girl's got flair. Chloe opened the book slowly. Inside, names, birth records, blackmail codes, photos, pages marked property, heirs. Betrayals. She turned to a blank one. Wrote a name in ink. Oliver. Brandon blinked. Wait, Oliver? As in, hoodie kid who keeps lurking during thunderstorms? Chloe nodded. Half-brother. Blood. He's next. Lucretia's mouth twitched. You just declared war. Chloe smiled. No. I declared season 2.